Hi, good morning everybody. This is Lynn. Oh, let me turn this on here. Can you hear me? Here we go. I needed to turn this on and I'll be right with you here for a second. Technology. I'm not real good at it. Okay, I got a microphone so everybody can hear me better because I'm ready to speak. And I just want to say hello, good morning to everybody. And I don't know if a lot of you are aware of this or not. I did put a post on there the other day about it, but this is the day. This is August 8th, and it is considered one of the most fortunate days of the year. And it's a powerful day, and it's a day to put our intentions out there, knowing that we're fully supported and we have everything within us that we need for that to happen. So I am going to have some fun today. I had a day that happened to me back in 2016 that I considered my most blessed, fortunate day. I mean, it was a huge day for me. And I want to share that with everybody here because some people know it. I actually was talking to somebody last night and I said something about a diamond and she said, oh, and I said, well, I told you that story, didn't I, that experience that I had? And she's like, no. I said, oh, I thought I did. So, you know what? This is too good to keep in and not share it with the world. And I've been telling people here and there and, you know, having fun with it and loving the experience and loving everything I've learned from it. But I want to share it with you guys today. So, because it is the most fortunate day of the year. So I'm hoping to be part of that blessing for you guys because I'm telling you what, if this can happen to me, it can happen to every single person on this planet. No lie, no lie. So here it goes. It was in 2016 that I found myself in a situation where I was constantly worrying about money. Always, you know, I did not know where I was going to get my next dollar. And I actually happen to be in kind of that position right now. But you know what? There's a whole difference between then and now, and here's why. So I was laying in bed one night and I couldn't sleep and things were rolling around in my head, and I love to meditate. That's my favorite thing to do in the whole world. And I just couldn't quiet my mind. So I thought, I'm going to turn on YouTube and put on a meditation and try and get myself out of my head because I know my thoughts are what are really causing me a problem right now. So I turned on YouTube and up popped Abraham Hicks. Now, I was like, wow, Abraham Hicks. I forgot about that. So 20 years ago, let's see if I can get this on again. There we go. So 20 years ago, when I got divorced, I was at a yoga center, and they had on Sunday mornings, they would have a guest speaker that would come and talk about anything that helped raise your level of consciousness. You know, a lot of different speakers and things. And on this Sunday, I was sitting there, and there was a row of like 20 chairs maybe across, and sitting at the other side was this older couple. They were probably like 63, my age now, and I was around 40. And the gentleman stood up and he walked down the row of chairs and he tapped me on the shoulder and he said, excuse me, honey. He said, you know what? I think you might really like this. And he said, this is for you. And he handed it to me. And it was a cassette tape. And when I looked at it, the cassette tape was Abraham, the Law of Attraction. And I said, oh, well, thank you. You know, thank you very much. So I would listen to that when I was in my car. And I liked everything it said, and, you know. And in 2011, I was in a bad car accident, and I actually forgot that I had put the tape like in the top, you know, dashboard thing. And so now the car is gone, tape is gone, Abraham is gone. Totally forgot about it. Never even gave it a thought until this night. So I thought, well, you know what, I'm going to listen to what she says because I remember really liking the tape and listening to it all the time. So when I listened to her, she was talking about, you know, life is supposed to be fun. We're supposed to have a good time and, you know, enjoy it. And, you know, you find yourself worrying. I'm telling you, she was speaking to me. She was like, you're finding, you're going to be worrying about things. And when you worry about things, your vibration drops and your frequency. And, the answer can be right in front of you, but you can't see it because you're so concerned and worried about everything. And it's all about raising your vibration and your frequency. And she said, and here's how you do it. You just don't pay attention to things that make you worried. So I thought, well, yeah, how do you do that? So she continued on, and she said the way to do that is focus on anything that makes you feel better. So for me, my grandchildren are what light me up. And especially, not that it's not now, they light me up now. That's where my go-to is, thinking about my grandkids. But even back then, they're brand new, and there were just a couple of them, and it was, new and exciting, and wow, so awesome, having these grandbabies. And so I thought, okay, every time I worry about things, I'm going to think about my grandkids and, get myself out of it. So I started playing with it. And I'll tell you what, it was working. It was like I wasn't worrying anymore. I was feeling better. Things seemed to come easier. Everything was going good. So I decided I was going to go on the internet and see if she was going to be in Chicago, because I thought I would love to see her in person, So I actually got on the internet, looked her up. Sure enough, she was coming to Chicago at the end of September. And now it was probably like March, April, something like that. And I was like, oh my God, September, that's awesome, So I looked at the price, and it's $225. It's like, oh my God, I don't have $225. Like, there's no way. And then I thought, you know what? I'm just going to get an envelope, start an envelope, and every time I have extra money, I'm going to pop it in there. So I did. And I figured by September, I should have $225 in there. So now we're going to fast forward to, now it's in September, and it's the Wednesday before she's coming on Sunday. And at that time, I'm a Reiki master, and I was actually going to Ingalls Hospital, working at the cancer center there for the people getting infusions and stuff. So I would spend my day off on Wednesday, and I would go and I would do deep relaxation with the people, or meditation, or if they were open to it, I would offer them a Reiki treatment, whatever I felt like they were open to, to help ease their day. So this day I looked out, and I've got a beautiful window out here, that looks out to the grass and the trees and everything. And it was like a most pristine summer day, or fall day actually. The leaves were beautiful, and it was 70 degrees, and there was a breeze in the air. And I was like, oh, I do not want to go sit inside and do this all day long. How selfish is that? And then I remembered Abraham's teachings and what she says about being selfish. And she said, we're accused of teaching you people to be selfish. And she's like, yes, we do. That's what we're teaching you. And what I've done is I've turned that word around. I'm like, okay, not selfish, but self-full. I want to be self-full today. So I said, you know what? I'm not going to go. I'm going to take the whole day for myself. I'm just not going to go. So I didn't go. As soon as I made that decision, my phone rang, and my friend Carol called, and she said, hey, Lindy, you want to go have lunch today? And I said, I can't believe you just called me, because you know what? I just made the decision not to go to Ingalls today. I said, yeah, let's go have lunch. So sure enough, we went and had lunch, had a nice lunch, and after lunch, Carol said, oh my gosh, it's beautiful out. Why don't we go for a walk in the woods? There's a beautiful path out here, So I said, okay. So she drove her car over, I drove my car over, and we're walking on this path, and there's leaves on the ground, 4 inches of leaves. We're kicking through the leaves, and as we're walking, I'm talking to her about Abraham, and I'm teaching her some of the things that Abraham says, about your frequency and your vibration, and it's kind of like a radio station, you could be listening to 103.5, right? Does that mean that there's not music playing on 99.6? Yeah, there is, but if you're not listening to that station, you're not hearing that music. So it's all in how you're tuned in, where you're tuned in, where's your vibration. So if you have a high frequency and your vibration is high, all the answers are right there. everything that we could ever ask for has already been given to us, and all we have to do is raise our frequency and our vibration, right? I said, Carol, I said, the minute you start worrying about stuff, I said, your vibration drops. I said, and the answer could be right here, right smack in front of your face, but you can't see it because the vibration's now dropped, and you're worried about everything. You can't even see the answer that's right there. And as I said that, I was like, wait a minute. So I stopped, I turned around, and I walked back like 3 steps. I started like pushing the leaves aside, and Carol's like, well, what are you doing? I said, I saw something, and I picked it up. And she's like, what is it? I said, it's an earring. So I'm scraping the dirt off this earring as we're walking, and you know, and I had said to her, well, back to what I was telling you, you know. And I said, oh my gosh, the light hit the earring. And I looked at it and I said, gosh, I know a diamond when I see one. I would swear that this is a diamond, right? And Carol says, let me see it. So I go like this, I point it to her, right? So here, you know. She goes, oh, it's gotta be a CZ. And I said, well, you know what, Carol? I go, let's pretend this is a diamond. I go, if this was really a diamond, I said, this would be an exact demonstration of what I'm teaching you. And she's like, yeah, you know, okay. So we get in our cars. She gets in her car. I get in my car. I've got this diamond still in my hand, and I go to roll my window down, and I start to toss the diamond out the window. And as I go to toss it, this little voice in my head says, somebody's going to find a diamond. So I was like, meow, and I dropped it in my cup holder, right? So we leave, and I'm thinking to myself, gosh, I have the whole day. Like, usually I'm there at the cancer center for the entire day. Now I have nothing to do. I might as well take a ride over to Mary Lou's Jewelers and have her look at it and just see if it's a diamond or not. I have nothing else to do. So I drive over to the jewelers. I'm telling the people when I walk in, you know, about what happened and how I was walking, blah, blah. And they're like, yeah, you know what? We know. People come in here all the time with things like that, and, you know, it's never anything. I said, yeah, I know, but, you know, here's the thing. I said, when I went to toss it out the window, this little voice said, someone's going to find a diamond. So I thought, why not just go get it looked at? What have I got to lose, right? So the girl says, okay, no problem. She said, let me go clean it up. I'll be right back. So she comes back, and she has a thing that looks like a pen, and she goes to touch it, and it buzzes, and every head in the store turns and looks. And I said, what does that mean? She said, it means it's a diamond. And I said, really? She said, yeah, it is. I said, wow, okay. So now Mary Lou comes out from the back, who owns the store, and she says, hi, Lynn. I know her from the past, and she's like, hi, Lynn, what's going on? I said, well, you know, I found this diamond, I guess. And she said, well, let me take a look at it. She's looking at it, and she goes, you know, I think it's between 2 and 3, but, you know, let me go and really clean it up and really look at it, and I'll give you a better answer. I said, okay. So she comes back maybe 15 minutes later, and she's got this little cloth bag in her hand, and she goes, honey, you know what? Put this in a really safe place, she said, because I was wrong. This is not between 2 and 3. She said, this is a $9,000 diamond. And I was like, what? $9,000 diamond? When she said 2 or 3, I'm thinking, 2 or 3 what? I didn't know what she was talking about. But $9,000? And she goes, yeah, you know, that's retail, but yeah, this is a $9,000 diamond. This is a very, she goes, you know what, in a set of earrings, she said there's usually one really good diamond, and there's one that's maybe not as good, but it makes the pair beautiful. And she said, you got the good one. And I said, oh my God, you know. So I went home, and I'm like, this is going to be sacred. I'm not going to tell a single soul. And, you know, oh my God, this was dropped out of heaven. This is amazing. And I'm going to put it on my altar and not tell anybody about this, because this is like a gift from God, gift from heaven, right? So I put it on my altar. Now, the next day, I was going to meet my friend Wendy, and we were going to go have breakfast, because we used to work together at Trader Joe's and hadn't seen each other in over probably a year, you know, at the time. So she comes, she picks me up, she pulls up. I go downstairs, and I go out the garage, and as I approached the door, I opened the door, and she goes, hey, Lynn, she goes, you know what, do you mind? She said, I'm sorry, but, and she pulls like out of like where the seat is at, she pulls up a baggie, and she holds it up, and she said, I've been carrying these watches around for 3 months. I have to get the crystals polished, and I have to do it today. Do you mind if we stop at my jeweler? So I said, hold on a minute. So I go running back upstairs. I grab my secret, sacred, gift from God right off my altar, and I go running downstairs, and I tell her a story about what happened. She's like, you've got to be kidding. I said, no. So we went to the first jeweler, right? And we're telling him the story, and he said, where did you get this? And I said, on the ground. He goes, this is a $9,000 diamond. I said, that's what she said. And Wendy was like, oh my God, seriously, $9,000. And he's like, yeah, but that's retail. It's like a car. When you buy a car, it's retail. And she said, well, okay, so how would she sell this? If she wants to sell it, where would she go, and how much would she get? What would she expect? He said, well, he goes, let me tell you, he said, I'll give you $1,000 right now for it. And we said, oh, yeah, okay, thanks. And we left, right? So Wendy had just gotten engaged, and she said, let's go to my jeweler. She's a friend of mine, and she will tell us the truth, right? So I said, okay. So we go to her jeweler. Her jeweler's looking at it, same thing, and she's like, where did you get this? I said, on the ground. She said, it's a $9,000 diamond. Like, every one of them said $9,000. And I don't know enough about diamonds to know what would make that distinction, but they weren't off by a penny. They all said 9,000. So I said, okay. So she said, well, let me tell you. So Wendy said the same thing. How would she sell it? Where does she go? And what would we expect? And, and she said, you know what? She said, I'll give you $2,000 in cash for it right now. And I was like, $2,000 minus $225 for my ticket to go see Abraham. I've got money left over to pay a couple bills. Oh my God, this is awesome, right? And this is like where the universe, I swear, I always try and remember this, has always got my back. Because she said, well, but wait a minute. Why didn't Mary Lou offer you anything? She said, she's a good friend of mine. And I said, oh, well, you know what? Honestly, this happened last night. I said, I just took the little bag. I think I was in shock, and I walked out. I didn't even ask. It didn't even occur to me to ask her if she wanted to buy it, And she said, well, listen, do me a favor. Go to her, see what she will give you for the diamond. And if she doesn't give you $2,000, I'll give you $2,000 for it. I said, okay, great. I went to Mary Lou. She looked at it. She said, well, Lynn, I want my auditor to see this because, I'm looking at it with my naked eye. I want to make sure it's correct. And she said, if I'm correct about this, she said, I'll call you tonight with a figure, but it'll be between $2,500 and $3,000. I said, okay. She called me that night and she said, come on in. I have $2,800 for you. She said, it'll be at the store tomorrow. I said, okay, great. I went and picked it up. I called Abraham. I got my ticket to go see Abraham on Sunday. Oh my God. So I'm driving. I wake up on Sunday morning, and I don't know if you remember how it felt like when you were a kid and it would be Christmas morning and you open your eyes and then all of a sudden it dawns on you it's Christmas morning. It's like, oh, it's Christmas. It was like that for me. I was like, oh, I'm going to see Abraham. I was just so excited. So I get dressed, I get in the car, I fly to O'Hare Airport because it was at the O'Hare Hyatt Regency, right? So I'm driving there, and I'm telling you what, talk about high vibration. I was like off the roof. I was so excited. So I get to the hotel, and I'm driving up the ramp, like the parking ramp, and I went all the way to the top. So I get out, and I noticed there was a car following me all the way, So I get all the way to the top, and I get out of the car, and this couple is getting out of their car, and she comes walking straight over to me, and she says, can I ask you something? I said, sure. And she goes, what are you here for? And I said, oh, yeah. And I was kind of embarrassed. I said, I'm here to see Abraham, Esther Hicks. And she goes, so are we. I said, oh my God, wait till you hear how I got my ticket. So I tell her this story as we're going down, her and her boyfriend, as we're going downstairs. And they were like, can we sit with you? I go, oh my gosh, yeah, So we get down to the room, and it's filled with people. And I'm looking for like 3 seats next to each other. And over on the left-hand side, I see these 3 seats up towards the front. I said, you want to go sit over there? And they were like, yeah, okay. So we go and we sit down. And so now the stage is like right here, you know, and I'm looking over at the stage, and there's a chair on the stage, and they call that the hot seat. So what Abraham does is she calls someone up from the audience and then spends time with them, and you can ask questions and everything, and it's really cool. So I'm looking at the chair, and I turned and I said to them, I go, you know what, you guys, I'm not trying to brag or anything, but I'm going to be in that chair. And her boyfriend leans over and he goes, you know that, don't you? And I go, I do. And so he says, oh my God. So Abraham comes out, and guess what? First one out, she points to me. I turn to them and I go, oh my God. And they were like, it's you. I go, oh my God. So I got to go up and talk to Abraham one-on-one, and I asked some questions referring to money and abundance financially, right? And I loved her answers. Totally resonated with me. And then she says, is there anything else? And I said, well, can I tell you about something? And she said, sure, go right ahead. And I said, well, you know, I didn't have the money to come here. And she's like, oh, you didn't? You know, now the audience is laughing because they know that Abraham knows everything already. And I said, no. And so I made it a really short, you know, I was walking down this path with leaves and saw a little flash. I went back, and sure enough, it was a diamond. It was worth $9,000, and the crowd went crazy, you know. I said, but here's the thing. What I was excited about was not the money. I was excited about the money. Let's not lie. I was excited about the money. But what I was truly excited about was that I knew that if I could find a diamond under leaves in the middle of the woods on a fall day, that I had to be aligned. I had to be connected with Source, the universe, God, whatever you want to call it. And that was why I was beyond excited. I prayed every day, and I still do pray every day for alignment, and I sit and I meditate every day, and I teach meditation because that's what I love, is to help people learn how to align themselves with their highest selves, which I refer to as God, the gift of divinity, G-O-D, that lives within each one of us. We all have the capacity for this. So, like, in that was the most fortunate day of my entire life, because I feel like, do you remember the genie in the bottle? And all I had to do is rub the bottle, and the genie would pop out and grant you 3 wishes. I used to always think, well, why don't we wish for as many wishes as we want? Right? And then you'd have whatever you want. And it's kind of the same thing with this. It's like that alignment showed me that I can be aligned, and I can get my heart's desire, because all I have to do is ask, and it's given. Like Abraham says, ask and it is given. And God knows our heart. So I was cleaning my room because, like, today is August 8th, our day of fortune and everything. And I thought, you know, I'm going to get everything just right and do our little thing there, you know, for the Lionsgate portal or whatever you call it. And in all honesty, I know all I have to do is sit and be still and align myself and open myself and allow. And you know what? The piece that I was missing out of even all of that was really learning to love myself and to know that I am loved. And so for me to know that, then I can give the love. I found a list. I've got notebooks all over the place with things that have come to me. I've written them down, and, you know, and I don't know when I wrote this because I didn't date it, but it said 5 things I really want. Number 1, to know the real me. Number 2, to accept the real me. Number 3, to be the real me. Number 4, to live the real me. And number 5 is to give the real me. And you know what? I feel at this point in my life, I'm at number 5. I'm ready to give the real me. And I don't know if anybody wants, I'm going to just offer that if you want to private message me, I'll tell you what my plan is for giving the real me and to sharing, you know, this experience and like the things that I've learned from it. One of the things I know for sure is I can talk to somebody and within probably the most 2 hours in a nice conversation, I see what their gift is. I see what they're not seeing. And so I would love to help or talk to anybody or put myself out there. I'm doing a coaching certification program now, and you know what? I welcome anybody to call, and I'll give you details on that, but I want to play with people now. I want to play in the playground of this beautiful gift of the world that we've got and have fun and share and share in everybody's victories and everybody's love. Right now, I'm going to be honest, like the day before yesterday, I found myself feeling depressed and upset, and you know, and it was all this other stuff that's going on around, and yet it took me less than 24 hours to get myself back in alignment again and to know that, you know what, everything is absolutely perfect and working out fine. So I'm sorry this is so long, you guys. I really appreciate your listening to me, and if you would like to work with me, like as a coach or whatever, or just, you know, whatever, brainstorm with me, private message me. Go on Messenger and put it in there and I'll respond to you. But I'm ready to give and I'm ready to play, and I can't wait to see what I attract. I mean, that's one of the things that I love now about this is like the things that people, the experiences that I attract into my life are just truly amazing. And I love you guys, and I thank you for listening. I hope you have the most fortunate day today, but you know what? I hope you have the most fortunate day every single day of your life when you wake up and you open your eyes and you see like, oh my God, how blessed we are with everything. So I love you guys. Peace. Have a wonderful day. Keep smiling. Bye-bye.